We've got to talk about these brisket prices because this is just crazy. I just did the analysis on the prices and what I found is absolutely insane. There's also a good thing. We're going to talk about brisket prices and we're also going to talk about 1, 2, 3 good alternatives. The whole promise of barbecue is that you used to be able to take a cheap cut like a brisket, and then with some expertise and a little bit of time, you can turn this unwanted piece of meat, which no one knew what to do with, and turn it into something delicious that everybody loved. But the demand has become so high that the brisket prices are shooting through the roof. And it's no longer an affordable cut, and it's no longer fun to pay those prices. And this is not even a local problem. This is a worldwide problem. The demand for brisket has become so high that we have a worldwide shortage. I've been looking into the data, and this will shock you. In the US alone, in the category brisket, prices jumped 14% in 1 year. In the UK, over the past few years, beef prices have been rising over 27%. And if you're thinking this is just the US and the UK, you're wrong, because in the Netherlands, this is where I live, prices have been rising over 23%. But that's not the worst one, because if you live in Germany, you're really screwed, because prices have been rising over 30%. And of course, if you're Australian, you're lucky. Yeah. It's always the same thing with these guys. Their prices only risen by 10%. If we just go back to brisket and take a look at the popularity, then it's not really strange that the prices have been going up. Because where barbecue used to be a hole in the wall kind of thing, where people just traveled and knew locally about their briskets, it is now something that has been praised over the internet, over the media, and people are traveling for briskets. And so they're willing to pay Disney-style prices. If you're a day out with a family and you're spending a little extra just to have some fun, I understand. But if you're a barbecue fanatic and you want to cook at least once or twice a week on your barbecue, this is not a good deal. And since I expect prices to rise even further, I suggest we start looking for alternatives. And probably something affordable that we can do in the style that we like to do it. I'm using a snake method combined with coconut briquettes that burn up to 8 hours, so this should definitely be enough for a long cook. And I also put in some whiskey barrel chunks for smoking and dialed the smoking temperature into about 120 degrees Celsius. Let's start with our first alternative. This is, well, the most of you probably already know, the chuck steak. Well, it's not currently the chuck steak. This is the whole shoulder clod. And that is where chuck steaks come from. And you might even recognize it a little bit if you look at it from the side. And some of you are already big fans of this cut, especially for the price point. You can even consider this the end of the ribeye, and for some, this is still a really good steak to eat on a regular basis. Because if you take a look at the color of the meat, it's dark red, it's working meat. And that means it's a little bit tougher, but it also has a lot of flavor. And that combined with the intermuscular fat that sits in the muscle, you get a lot of juiciness, and that is what we need. This is the #1 thing when you're doing barbecue. And price-wise, if you buy the whole shoulder clod, you're gonna be extremely happy with the price that you pay per kilogram compared to brisket. And the reason for that is because it's not popular yet as a whole cut. However, I would not recommend using the whole cut. I would recommend slicing this up into steaks of about 1.5 kilograms. And the reason for that is because the meat is so thick and big that you won't have a lot of barbecue flavor inside the meat. So if you cut it up in 1.5 kilogram steaks, you're going to have a beautiful smoked piece of beef with a lot of barbecue flavor. So if you buy this cut yourself, portion it yourself, you're going to save lots of money. And as you can see, you're going to get plenty of meat from one shoulder. If you're thinking, well, what am I going to do with all that meat and it probably is too much for me, you can always turn this into burgers. Look at that, isn't that a beautiful ensemble of meat for barbecue? Now just one of these steaks is gonna feed my family just fine, and all I have to do is just season it with a little bit of PITMASTERX Texas seasoning. Sprinkle it on. It can do with plenty of seasoning because it's a thick cut of meat, and don't forget to season the sides. Of course, I'm going to stick in a wireless thermometer to keep my eye on the temperature, and this is not good to go on the barbecue. I already set up my Napoleon Pro grill for indirect cooking. This is the second steak that we're going to talk about, and I love this one because you can use it as a steak, just as a chuck steak, but it's probably even better than the chuck steak, and you can use it for barbecue. And the reason that it's really good for barbecue is because of the amount of intramuscular fat that you have inside this steak. Because many of you know this steak as the flat iron steak. Well, in its current state, it's not the flat iron steak just yet, it's the whole piece. This comes from the whole shoulder blade, and the way that it's cut right now, that is what makes it cheap. Once you cut this into a flat iron steak, the price almost doubles. And these are the things that you have to know if you're looking for a better deal and a cheaper cut. With this cut, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing as I did with the chuck steak. I'm gonna portion it. And this is for me the fun part, because again, I'm looking just to feed my family. This is about 3 kilograms, and that means I'm gonna cut it in half, which also gives us a great opportunity to show you what that looks like. Look, see that? That is a piece of silver skin that runs in the middle, and that is a tough cut. We need to cook it down and it becomes super jelly and really intense. I'm just gonna run half of it through the vacuum machine, put it in my freezer and barbecue it for my family on another day. Now for this cut, I'm going to carve into the fat cap, but I'm leaving it on. You can take it off if you want to, but I think it's really great to have that fat cap still intact. Render it down while I'm cooking. I'm not gonna heavily season the fat cap, just a little bit of PITMASTERX Texas seasoning. That's gonna be fine. And then just heavily season the other side. And to me, that fat cap is gonna give it a little bit of a unique character, just like with the picanha. Of course, I'm gonna put my trusty chef temp in again, keep my eye on the temperature, and add it to the chuck steak on the barbecue. Time for our final replacement for a brisket under $30, and it's gonna be a surprise. Ta-da! Ta-da! Do you recognize it? It is the hack. Hou je kop! I'm sorry, I do apologize. This is my moment to shine. Monday. Stop texting me. Monday. Monday is butchering day here. I'll be butchering that rooster. He doesn't know it yet, but he's got 3 more days. I hope he makes the best of it. And don't worry about the roosters. I got 2 roosters, so one has to go. It's the course of nature. But let's focus on my big deal here. But let's focus on the big deal here, because this is about the hanger steak. Yes, the butcher steak, the hanger steak. It is what is normally considered to be a really good steak for grilling. But actually, it's really affordable, and it's great for barbecue because it has a lot of really good intermuscular fat and still some volume to it that makes it suitable for barbecue. And that combined with the intramuscular fat, that's going to make this extremely juicy and tender. And therefore it's such a great opportunity to turn this into barbecue and to make it a really good steak. All you need to do is just season it with a little bit of barbecue seasoning and then stick in a wireless thermometer so you can keep your eye on the temperature and put it on the barbecue. That's it. This is such an amazing cut. One more buddy, guys. One more buddy for barbecue. Slide this over and put this in the middle. Look at that. That is just the perfect selection for a brisket replacement under $30. These cuts will give you the ultimate flexibility. I'm about 3 hours in, and I just want to show you guys this. Look, the color of the meat looks really good. I got that mahogany red smoke color on the meat. I could go even further and build up that bark. But with smaller cuts, I'd rather not. I'd rather wrap it right now to bring it up to a core temperature of 92 degrees Celsius. I'm going to use aluminum foil because what I want to do is add a little bit of beef tallow and then just start wrapping it up. This now goes back onto the barbecue to continue to cook. I'm going to do the same thing for the other cuts. Oh, look at that. Isn't that a beauty? I'm just going to add a little bit of beef tallow, a little less than the other ones because we got the fat cap. And that also goes back on the barbecue. Now let's close the lid and let it continue to cook. The trick now is to keep the barbecue at a temperature of 120 degrees Celsius. You can raise it up a little bit if you want to 140, but you really want to take it nice and slow and then cook it all the way through until the core temperature of the meat is about 92 to 94 degrees Celsius. Then we hit the sweet spot and it's time to take the next step. But that's going to take another couple hours. I just got the notification that our brisket replacements are done. So I'm going to take them off, carefully, well, save that moisture. At the same time, I really need to let these cool down. You see, they're at a really high temperature at the moment. But what I need now is to let them cool down to a temperature to hold them. And that is 63 degrees Celsius. My favorite time of barbecuing, and that is the unpacking. Normally I would do this overnight, but I feel like a late night snack. So I gave it 6 hours in the hold method. And now we get to unbox it. Oh, careful. It's super soft. Of course, first the chuck steak. Look at the glistening. Look at how juicy that looks. Absolutely perfect. Let's slice into this. Oh, that's soft. As you can see, we got a beautiful smoke ring. It's juicy, the fat rendered out perfect, and we got a really good bark. This really is a treat and a real good example of how you can place another cut with a brisket. Of course, I'm going to do a quick taste test. Oh yeah. Don't worry about it. This easily replaces brisket. I'm not going to lie. I think it's even a little better than brisket. On to the next one, the flat iron. Let's see how it turned out. I'm really curious about that fat cap and how juicy. It's a lot of juice. The bark is a little less pronounced, but that's usually because of the amount of fat that's rendered out and the juiciness. It's got a great smoke ring and it looks extremely juicy and tender, but it has a less pronounced bark. Is that a bad thing? Well, not necessarily. As long as the flavor's there, I don't care about the real color of the bark. And I can see the mahogany color of the smoke just shining through. So that really could be a good sign. Now, one of the downsides of this cut is that you're either gonna love or hate that collagen that sits in the middle. That's good. The flavor of this cut is not as pronounced as the chuck steak. I personally prefer the chuck steak over this, but this is still a really, really great cut. Now I can't hold my excitement and I can't wait to show you this. This is one of my all-time favorite for the replacements. And how does it compare to the chuck steak, which clearly is taking the lead right now. A little bit of juice right there. Oh yeah. The hanger steak or the butcher steak. Let's do a cross cut right here. Ooh, that's a strong bark. Whoa, look at that. That is impressive. Look at how juicy that is. And this one is fall apart tender. This is really, really good. This hanger steak definitely has the best looking bark out of all of them. It's a nice crusty steak. The fat rendered down completely. It's still juicy and moist on the inside. I got my smoke ring. It's just one of those things where you think, wow, I didn't expect that. But let's do a taste test and see how it compares to that chuck steak. I love that flavor profile. That is really good. That is super. I love this steak. It has so much flavor. There's only one big downside. It's not big. And I can definitely say this is not going to be enough for 4 people. And I personally think that in the near future, we will actually see the chuck steak replace the brisket in barbecue restaurants. The brisket will probably become something exotic and very exclusive that you can order. But the chuck steak is probably gonna be a main item. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was fun for me to make. And I want to especially thank Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this video. And of course, for me, to be able to fill my belly up with all this deliciousness. See you guys in the next one. Until then, eet smakelijk and keep on grilling.